After a few drinks, I kissed a stranger at the bar, and my husband left without saying a word. Hello, Reddits. I am broken. I have been very foolish, and now I don't think my foolishness can be redeemed. For the purpose of this story, I'll be using fake names to hide my identity, because I am so ashamed and scared you guys will find out who I am and then taunt me. So let's call my name Melanie, and I'm 29 years old. I've been married to my husband Daniel for 5 years. If you asked me to describe our relationship in one word, I would have said resilient. We've been through a lot together, more than most couples our age, and somehow we always managed to come out the other side, at least I thought we did. The truth is, our marriage has been hanging by a thread for a while now, and I'm the one who's been pulling it apart. 2 years ago, I made a mistake that nearly ended everything. I cheated on Daniel. It wasn't some drunken one-night stand or a fleeting mistake. I knew what I was doing, and I did it anyway. When he found out, I thought for sure it was over. But Daniel, he stayed. He chose to forgive me, or at least try to, because he believed we could rebuild what we had. Looking back, I think that was the moment I should have changed. I should have realized how lucky I was to have someone like him, someone willing to give me a second chance when most people would have walked away without looking back. But I didn't. Instead, I let his forgiveness become an excuse. I convinced myself that because he stayed, it meant things were okay, even though deep down, I knew they weren't. I wish I could say that I spent the past 2 years doing everything I could to make up for what I did, to prove that I deserved his forgiveness. But I didn't. I let the guilt fester, and instead of facing it, I pushed it aside. I told myself that we were fine, that the distance between us would eventually fade, but it didn't. If anything, it grew. And now, after what I've done, I know I've destroyed whatever fragile trust we had left. Last week, I made another mistake, a stupid, impulsive mistake that I can't take back. I went out with my friends for a girls' night, had a few drinks, and kissed a stranger at the bar. It wasn't planned. It wasn't something I thought about or wanted. It just happened. And as soon as it did, I knew I had crossed a line I couldn't uncross. When Daniel found out, I lied to him. I told him it didn't happen, that it was just a misunderstanding because I thought I could protect what little we had left. But instead, I destroyed it. That was the last straw for him. He didn't yell or scream or fight with me. He just left. He walked out of the house without saying a single word, and now I don't know if he'll ever come back. I've been sitting here for days, trying to process everything, and all I feel is this crushing weight of regret. I keep replaying that moment in my head, the kiss, the look on Daniel's face when he confronted me, the sound of the door closing behind him. It's like a movie I can't turn off, no matter how much I want to. I don't know how I let it get to this point. I don't know why I keep making the same mistakes, hurting the person who loves me most. Daniel was my safe place, my steady ground, and I threw it all away for nothing. I don't know if I'll ever get the chance to fix this, or if I even deserve to. If you're reading this, I hope you'll stick around to hear the rest. Maybe there's something to learn from my mistakes, or maybe I just need to get it all out. Either way, this is the story of how I ruined the best thing I ever had, and how I'm left trying to figure out if there's anything left to save. When Daniel and I first got married, it felt like everything was falling into place. He was my rock, the kind of man who would drop everything to make me feel loved and supported. In those early years, he made me believe in forever. He'd do little things that made me feel cherished, like leaving notes on the bathroom mirror or making my favorite meal after a long day. We didn't have a lot of money or a glamorous life, but what we had felt solid, stable, like it could withstand anything. Looking back, I can see how much I took that stability for granted. I assumed Daniel would always be there, no matter what. I thought his love was unconditional, like it was something I didn't have to work for. Over time, I got too comfortable. Life became predictable, and the excitement I used to feel when we first got together started to fade. At first, it was little things. I'd find myself zoning out during conversations, or feeling impatient when he'd ask me to spend time with him. I chalked it up to the stresses of life, but deep down, I think I started craving something more. I missed the thrill of new relationships, the butterflies, the anticipation, the feeling of being desired in a way that was intense and urgent. With Daniel, everything had become so routine. I should have talked to him about how I was feeling, but I didn't. Instead, I let that dissatisfaction fester, growing into resentment I couldn't fully explain. I started to notice things about him that irritated me, how he left his shoes in the middle of the floor, how he hummed while brushing his teeth, how he seemed content with the simplicity of our lives. None of it was new, but now it all felt suffocating. That's when I met Chris. Chris was a coworker who had just joined our team. He was charming, confident, and had this magnetic energy that made people want to be around him. He wasn't necessarily better looking than Daniel, but he carried himself in a way that made him stand out. He noticed me almost immediately, always stopping by my desk to chat or compliment my work. At first, I thought it was harmless, just friendly banter between coworkers. But the more we talked, the more I realized how much I enjoyed the attention. It started small. We'd grab lunch together or linger after meetings, talking about everything from work to personal life. He made me laugh in a way I hadn't laughed in years, and I felt seen in a way that I hadn't felt in my marriage for a long time. I told myself it was innocent, that I wasn't doing anything wrong. But deep down, I knew I was crossing a line. The first time we kissed, it was after a late work event. We'd both had a few drinks, and the conversation had turned more personal than usual. He told me I was beautiful, that I deserved to feel appreciated, and before I knew it, we were standing in the parking lot, and he leaned in. I didn't stop him. I told myself it was just a moment of weakness, that it didn't mean anything, but it didn't stop there. The next day at work, he acted like nothing had happened, but when he asked me to grab lunch, I said yes. One lunch turned into another, and soon we were finding reasons to spend time together outside of work. The first time we slept together, I remember feeling like I was in a dream, or maybe a nightmare, depending on how you look at it. We met at a hotel, something he had suggested so we wouldn't run into anyone we knew. I told Daniel I had a late meeting and wouldn't be home until late. As I walked through the lobby, my heart was racing, a mix of excitement and guilt that I couldn't fully process. When I got to the room, Chris was already there waiting for me. The way he looked at me made me feel something I hadn't felt in years, desired, craved, like I was the only thing that mattered in that moment. He pulled me into his arms, and for the first time in what felt like forever, I let myself go. The sex was intense, passionate in a way that felt completely different from what I had with Daniel. With Chris, there was this raw energy, this sense of urgency that made me feel alive. But as much as I enjoyed it in the moment, there was always a pang of guilt afterward. I'd lie in bed next to Daniel, feeling the weight of what I'd done, but instead of confessing or stopping, I let it continue. Chris and I saw each other for months, sneaking around and finding ways to be together without getting caught. Each time I told myself it would be the last, but I couldn't seem to walk away. The thrill of the affair was addictive, and I convinced myself that I needed it, that it was filling a void Daniel couldn't. Eventually, Daniel found out. I'll never forget the look on his face when he confronted me. He didn't yell or scream. He just looked broken. He asked me why, and I didn't have an answer. How could I explain something I didn't fully understand myself? I told him it didn't mean anything, that it was over, and that I wanted to fix things. I didn't deserve it, but he gave me another chance. For a while, I thought we might actually be okay. Daniel stayed, even though I could see how much it hurt him. He tried to move past it, to forgive me, but there was always this unspoken tension between us. He didn't look at me the same way anymore. The warmth in his eyes had been replaced by doubt, and I knew he was always wondering if I'd hurt him again. At first, I tried to be the perfect wife. I stopped going out as much, focused on spending time with him, and did everything I could to prove I was committed to making our marriage work. But as time went on, that guilt turned into resentment. I hated the way he'd check my phone when he thought I wasn't looking, or ask questions about where I'd been. I knew I was the one who had broken his trust, but I couldn't help but feel suffocated by it. Instead of taking responsibility for what I'd done, I let my frustration grow. I started pulling away again, spending more time with friends and less time at home. I convinced myself that the distance between us was his fault, that if he couldn't trust me, it was his problem, not mine. I didn't want to see how much pain I was still causing him, so I turned a blind eye to it. Now looking back, I can see how unfair I was. Daniel had every right to feel the way he did, and instead of supporting him, I made it harder. I let my resentment fester, and it created a wedge between us that only grew over time. By the time I kissed that stranger at the bar, our marriage was already hanging by a thread. I just didn't realize how close we were to losing everything. I still don't know why I went out that night. Maybe I needed to feel normal again, to escape the heaviness that had been hanging over my marriage for so long. Or maybe I was just running away, pretending for a little while that I wasn't the woman who had betrayed her husband and left him with the impossible task of rebuilding trust. Whatever the reason, I told myself it was harmless. Just a night out with my friends. I thought it would be a distraction, a chance to forget how broken everything had become. I didn't tell Daniel much about it. He had always been uncomfortable with me going out without him, especially after the affair. I couldn't blame him for that. It was my fault he felt that way. But I didn't want to deal with his questions or the awkward silence that always followed when I told him I'd be out late. So I kept it vague, saying it was just a casual dinner with the girls. In reality, we were planning to hit a bar downtown, one of those trendy spots with loud music and overpriced cocktails. When I arrived, the place was already buzzing with energy. The lights were dim, the music was loud, and the air was thick with the smell of perfume and alcohol. It had been so long since I'd been in a place like that, surrounded by people who seemed so carefree and alive. For a moment, I felt like I could breathe again, like I could be someone other than the woman who was constantly trying to make up for her past mistakes. At first, I stuck to wine, keeping things light. But as the night went on, my friends started ordering rounds of shots, and I found myself joining in. The alcohol dulled everything, the guilt, the tension, the constant weight of knowing I had already broken Daniel's heart once and was still struggling to piece it back together. With each drink, I felt freer, like I could forget, even if just for a little while. It was around my third or fourth drink when he walked up to me. I didn't notice him at first. I was too caught up in laughing with my friends, but then he leaned against the bar next to me and struck up a conversation. He was tall, confident, and had this easy charm that immediately put me at ease. At first, I told myself it was nothing, just harmless small talk. I wasn't looking for anything, and I had no intention of doing anything wrong, but as we talked, I realized how much I was enjoying the attention. He complimented me, made me laugh, and asked questions that made me feel interesting and desirable. It was the kind of interaction I hadn't had in years, not since the early days of my relationship with Daniel. I knew it was dangerous, that I was walking a fine line, but I couldn't bring myself to stop. I told myself it was innocent, that it didn't mean anything, even as I felt the buzz of excitement building in my chest. As the drinks kept coming, the conversation became more personal. He leaned in closer, his hand brushing against mine as he spoke, and I didn't pull away. I knew I should have. I knew I was crossing a line, but at that moment, all I could think about was how good it felt to be noticed, to feel wanted. The alcohol made it easy to ignore the voice in the back of my mind, the one reminding me of everything Daniel had sacrificed to stay with me, of how much I owed him for giving me a second chance. And then it happened. I don't even remember what he said, some playful comment, a flirty remark that made me laugh. I turned to respond, and before I knew it, he was leaning in, his face inches from mine. For a split second, I hesitated, my heart racing as I felt the weight of the moment. I could have pulled away, walked away, ended it right there. But I didn't. Instead, I leaned in, closing the distance between us. The kiss was brief, no more than a few seconds, but it was enough. Enough to cross a line I couldn't uncross. Enough to shatter the fragile trust I had spent the last 2 years trying to rebuild. The moment our lips parted, the reality of what I had done hit me like a wave. My stomach turned, and I felt a rush of panic and guilt that was almost suffocating. I pulled back, mumbling some excuse about needing to find my friends, and hurried away. My hands were shaking as I pushed through the crowd, searching for the exit. I couldn't breathe, couldn't think, couldn't believe what I had just done. It wasn't just the kiss itself, it was what it represented. After everything Daniel had been through, after everything he had done to try to forgive me, I had betrayed him again. And for what? A meaningless moment with a stranger whose name I didn't even know. By the time I got outside, the cool night air did little to calm the storm inside me. I leaned against the wall, my mind racing as I tried to figure out what to do next. Should I tell Daniel? Should I pretend it didn't happen? The thought of confessing made my chest tighten, but the thought of lying to him felt even worse. I knew he would find out eventually. He always did. And when he did, it would be the end. I was sure of that. Looking back, I should have known something was wrong the moment I walked through the door. That particular night, Daniel was sitting on the couch, the TV off, just staring at his phone. His posture was tense, his hands clenched tightly around the device, like it was holding something he didn't want to let go of. Normally, he'd look up and smile when I got home, even if things between us hadn't been great lately. But that night, he didn't say a word. At first, I thought he was upset about how late it was. I knew he didn't like when I stayed out with my friends, especially after everything that had happened in the past. But I told myself it was fine, that I'd been careful, that he didn't have any reason to suspect anything. I dropped my bag by the door and mumbled something about being tired, hoping I could slip past him and head to bed without starting a conversation. But then he spoke. His voice was calm, almost too calm, as he asked how my night was. Something about his tone made my stomach twist, but I forced myself to act normal. I told him it was fine, that we'd just gone to a bar for a few drinks and laughed about old memories. He nodded, but the way he was looking at me made it clear that he wasn't convinced. And then he asked the question, "Did anything happen at the bar tonight?" The words hung in the air like a challenge, daring me to tell the truth. My heart started racing, my palms sweating as I struggled to keep my face neutral. I wanted to believe he was just being paranoid, that he didn't know anything, but there was something in his eyes that made it impossible to shake the feeling that he did. I panicked. My mind raced, trying to figure out what to say, how to spin it in a way that wouldn't make things worse. Finally, I told him no, that nothing happened, that it was just a fun night with my friends. As soon as the words left my mouth, I knew I'd made the wrong choice. Daniel didn't react right away. He just stared at me, his expression unreadable. For a moment, I thought maybe he believed me, that I'd managed to convince him, but then he spoke again. He said he already knew what had happened, that one of his coworkers had been at the bar and seen everything. He said he knew about the kiss, about how I'd leaned in and let a stranger pull me into something I couldn't take back. I froze. My mind went blank as the weight of his words hit me. He knew everything, and there was no way for me to deny it. But somehow, I still tried. I stammered out excuses, saying it wasn't what it looked like, that it was just a drunken mistake, that it didn't mean anything. But the look in his eyes stopped me cold. He wasn't angry. He wasn't yelling or demanding answers. He just looked defeated, broken, like he had been holding on to the last shred of hope for our marriage, and I had just torn it away. He asked why I lied. His voice was quiet, but the pain in it was unmistakable. He said he had given me a second chance because he believed in us, because he thought we could rebuild what I had broken. But now he didn't know if he could ever trust me again. I tried to apologize, to tell him I didn't mean to hurt him, but he held up his hand to stop me. He didn't want to hear it. He said it didn't matter anymore, that it was too late. And then, without another word, he stood up, walked to the bedroom, and started packing a bag. I followed him, begging him to talk to me, to let me explain, but he ignored me. He moved methodically, grabbing clothes, his toothbrush, and a few other essentials before zipping up his suitcase. I asked him where he was going, but he didn't answer. When he was finished, he grabbed his keys and walked toward the door. I stood there, frozen, as he looked back at me one last time. He didn't say anything. He didn't yell, didn't slam the door. He just left. And with him, he took every bit of hope I had that we could fix what was left of our marriage. After Daniel left, the house felt unbearably quiet. I sat on the couch for hours, staring at the door, waiting for him to come back. I kept telling myself he just needed some time to cool off, that he'd walk through the door any minute and we could talk things through. But he didn't. I tried calling him the next morning, but he didn't answer. I sent texts, apologizing, begging him to talk to me, but they all went unanswered. When I checked our shared calendar later that day, I saw a note he had added, "Meeting with a divorce lawyer." My heart sank. He wasn't coming back. The days that followed were some of the hardest of my life. I could barely eat or sleep, consumed by the weight of what I had done. Everywhere I looked, I saw reminders of Daniel, the coffee mug he always used, the jacket he left by the door, the photo of us from our honeymoon hanging on the wall. It felt like the house was haunted by him, by the life we had built together, and the trust I had shattered. I couldn't stop replaying the moment he walked out, the look on his face when he told me he already knew about the kiss. I had taken his forgiveness for granted, thinking he would always stay, no matter how many mistakes I made. I didn't realize how much pain he was still carrying from my first betrayal, or how fragile our relationship had become. Word of the incident spread quickly among our friends. I don't know if Daniel told them, or if someone else did, but it didn't take long for people to start taking sides. Most of them sided with Daniel, of course. They couldn't understand how I could hurt him again after everything he had already been through. And honestly, I couldn't blame them. Friends who used to invite me out stopped calling. People I thought were on my side started avoiding me. Even my own family expressed their disappointment, saying they didn't know who I had become. I've never felt more alone in my life. The house is quiet, empty, and cold without Daniel in it. I can barely look at myself in the mirror, knowing that I'm the reason he left. I thought I could handle the guilt, but this is so much worse. I don't know how to move forward. I don't know if there's any way to fix this, or if I even deserve to. All I know is that I would give anything to go back and undo what I did that night. But it's too late for that now. Update. Hello, Reddits. It's been a few weeks since Daniel left, and every day feels like it's dragging on forever. The emptiness in the house is unbearable. I keep expecting him to walk through the door, to sit at the kitchen table with his coffee, or collapse on the couch after a long day at work. But he's not coming back. I've realized that now. I've tried to reach out to him so many times. I've called, texted, even sent emails, but he hasn't responded to a single one. Each unanswered call feels like another door closing, another reminder that I may never get the chance to make things right. A few days ago, I got served with divorce papers. Seeing his name next to mine, the legal jargon spelling out the end of our marriage, it broke something in me. It made everything feel so final, so irreversible. I thought I could hold it together, but I can't. The regret is overwhelming, and it's with me every second of every day. I barely eat or sleep anymore, and when I do manage to close my eyes, I dream about him, about the night he left, about the look on his face when he confronted me, about the life we had together that I destroyed. I've started therapy, though I'll admit I was hesitant at first. I didn't think it would help. I figured there was nothing a stranger could say that would change the fact that I had ruined my marriage. But now I realize I didn't go to therapy to save my marriage. I went because I needed to figure out why I keep sabotaging everything good in my life. My therapist asked me to reflect on my actions, to really dig into the reasons behind them. At first, I wanted to blame everything else, my dissatisfaction, the way our marriage felt stagnant, the distance that had grown between us after my first affair. But the more I talked, the more I realized how much of it was on me. My actions weren't about what Daniel did or didn't do. They were about me, my selfishness, my immaturity, my inability to appreciate what I had. I've spent so much time chasing after excitement, after the thrill of being noticed or desired, that I never stopped to appreciate the quiet, steady love Daniel gave me. I took his forgiveness for granted, thinking it meant he would always stay, no matter what. I thought I could keep making mistakes, and that he would keep picking up the pieces. I didn't realize how much I was asking of him, or how much I was hurting him every time I let him down. The worst part is knowing how deeply I hurt someone who loved me so unconditionally. Daniel didn't just forgive me after my first betrayal. He stayed. He fought for us, even when it would have been easier to walk away. And instead of meeting him halfway, instead of putting in the effort to rebuild what I had broken, I let my guilt turn into resentment. I convinced myself that his distrust was the problem, not my actions. I made excuses for my behavior, telling myself that I deserved to be happy, that I was justified in seeking out the attention I felt I wasn't getting at home. But none of that excuses what I did. Every time I think about the night at the bar, I feel sick. I can't stop replaying it in my head, the way I let myself get carried away, the moment I leaned in for the kiss, the stranger's face fading into the background as the reality of what I'd done hit me. And then there's Daniel's face, the look in his eyes when he told me he already knew. I can't shake the image of him packing his things in silence, the sound of the door closing behind him echoing in my mind like a final goodbye. The house feels so empty without him. I never realized how much of my life revolved around him until he was gone. The mornings are the worst. Waking up and reaching for the other side of the bed, only to find it cold and untouched, it's like a punch to the gut every single day. I keep thinking about all the little things I used to take for granted, the way he'd kiss my forehead before he left for work, the way he'd stay up late watching TV with me even when he was exhausted, the way he'd make me laugh when I was having a bad day. I lost all of that because I couldn't appreciate what I had, because I let my insecurities and selfishness get the better of me. My friends and family have been supportive in their own way, but even they can't hide their disappointment. I can see it in their eyes when they look at me, hear it in their voices when they ask how I'm doing. They don't say it outright, but I know they're thinking, how could you let this happen again? And honestly, I don't have an answer. I don't know why I keep making the same mistakes, why I keep hurting the people I love most. The few friends Daniel and I shared have all taken his side, and I don't blame them for that. He's the one who was wronged, the one who gave everything to this marriage while I tore it apart piece by piece. I don't deserve their sympathy, and I wouldn't expect it. I know I need to move forward, but I don't even know where to start. I shouldn't even be moving forward because I was the one who ruined my life to begin with. There was no moving forward from that. And to be honest, therapy isn't helping because it doesn't change the fact that I'm alone now, that the life I had with Daniel is now all gone. All I can think of is the love we shared, the memories I tainted with my dirty affairs, the pain I caused Daniel because I was being too stuck up in my own thoughts and selfishness. I don't know if Daniel will ever forgive me, and I don't think I deserve his forgiveness. I have no hope for a better future because there's no sign of Daniel in it. I wish I had done better. I wish I had not been so stupid as to think that I could get away with the things I did. I wish I had paid much attention to Daniel, especially after the first affair I had. Maybe if I had tried my best and not let him doubt me again. No, let me rephrase that. I shouldn't have created the doubts in the first place. I should have been content and happy with Daniel because he had always been the best husband to me. Something which I took for granted until I finally broke him, and now there's no going back because I pushed him too far. Everything else just feels worthless without him in my life, and I'm barely hanging on, to be honest. I don't know where to go from here. All I know is that I've never felt this lost, and I'm not sure if I'll ever find my way back. Guys, is there a way of coming back from this? Because if there is, I will do anything to just do it. I'm so tired and exhausted of my own emotional state right now, and I will give anything to not be where I am right now. Regret is a really bitter pill to swallow because I feel so choked up. Update. Hi Reddit, it's me again. I didn't think things could get worse, but here I am. I recently found out that Daniel has started seeing someone else. I wasn't looking for the information, but mutual friends have a way of letting things slip, even when they think they're being subtle. They said he met her through work. She's kind, funny, and everything I wasn't to him in the end. I saw a photo of them together, and he looked happy, genuinely happy, in a way I haven't seen in years. I should be glad for him. He deserves happiness after everything I put him through, but knowing he's moved on feels like a punch to the gut. It's not just that he's with someone else, it's that he's thriving without me. I always thought that if things ever ended, we'd both struggle to move forward, but it's clear now that I was the only one holding him back. Meanwhile, I feel stuck, like I'm living in the aftermath of a life I destroyed with my own hands. Financially, things have been a mess since Daniel left. I didn't realize how much I relied on him until I was suddenly paying for everything on my own. The house feels too big, too empty, but I can't bring myself to leave. It's like I'm clinging to the ghost of our life together, even though I know there's nothing left here for me. Emotionally, I'm a wreck. I stopped going for therapy because it wasn't even helping. I still wake up expecting to see Daniel next to me, only to remember that he's gone. Nights are the worst. I lie in bed replaying every mistake I've ever made, wondering how I let it get to this point. I've thought about reaching out to him again, but what would I even say? He's clearly moved on, and I don't want to disrupt his new life. But at the same time, I feel this desperate need to apologize again, to try to make amends, to right my wrongs. and see, maybe I could have some level of peace. Maybe, maybe not. I keep asking myself if there's any chance of redemption, if I can ever truly rebuild my life after what I've done. I fear I might have gone too far with the whole thing, and that there is no bouncing back from it. My days are filled with painful memories of what I could have had, but never will, because I was careless to lose it when I did have it. I wish desperately that I could just go back in time and undo my wrongs, but life doesn't do do-overs. I'm going to be stuck with my pain and a future that I have no expectations for. It just feels empty and bleak and promises more pain. And then there's the shame. People talk. I know I'm the villain in this story, and I don't blame them for seeing me that way. The whispers, the judgment, it's constant. I used to think I was strong, that I could handle anything. But now I feel like I'm crumbling under the weight of it all. I don't know what to do, Reddit. Should I try to make amends, even if it changes nothing? Or should I let go and start over, even though I have no idea where to begin? All I know is that I've never felt this loss before. Please, if you're reading this, don't make the same mistakes I did. Appreciate the people who love you, and don't take them for granted. Once they're gone, you can't get them back.